Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Reasonably Effective Podcast. I'm Twin Types, as always, joined by Uncommon Fossil.
Well, glad to be here and looking forward to today's discussion.
Yeah, and today we're talking about something that, I imagine most people who watch this are somewhat familiar with. I'm somewhat familiar with. I think you're even more familiar with than I am, and that's Pokemon TCG Live. There is some new information to talk about. Um, some interesting new stuff, nothing, crazy, but we also just want to talk about the state of the game because I think
Yep.
it's I just definitely have some thoughts on it. And I think you do as well. You know a bit more about the history of it, and I also think there are some misconceptions about live as well. Some things. I guess I'll start with the biggest thing that people, or the two things, that people get wrong about it. So the first one is this is actually, and this is weird. I don't know all the details, but it is made by the Pokemon Company International, right? TPCI.
Yes.
And they are not the ones who make the car or who like design the cars. They're not the ones who um, I mean, they are not the ones. They're international outside of Japan. They don't make like Pocket. Um, so they are separate. There are two
Right.
different things. They aren't the same. And people sometimes get that wrong. And then also, I was just browsing through the forums, and some people still call live Pokemon TCG Online, which admittedly Pokemon TCG Live and Pokemon TCG Online are like not very descriptive names. Well, they are descriptive, I guess, but they're not very different or unique names. So that can be a little
Yeah.
confusing. And even Pocket, right? Pokemon is short for Pocket Monsters. So the different
Well,
things like that are weird.
yeah, and Pocket is Pokemon trading card game Pocket, right? I
Yeah.
think.
Mhm.
So Pokemon trading card game also includes Pocket. The naming is weird, and then we could also you can rant about how they keep utilizing names like EXs in
Yeah.
different variations, just to they don't really seem to worry about the confusion that these things cause. But in terms of yes, I mean PTC Pokemon TCG Live essentially replaced PTC Go, so they're kind of interchangeable. Unlike something which I don't think we'll really be referencing, but like just I'm referencing now briefly, but like with Magic the Gathering, their original was also Magic the Gathering Online, similar to Pokemon trading card game online, and then they have Magic the Gathering Arena, the new one, but they both exist to this day. So therefore, there are two different things that you do need to be careful of here. If you say PTCGO, everyone's going to understand what you're talking about, right? Because you
Um,
haven't had PTC. No.
well, I don't know. Sometimes people. So one thing, and we're going to be talking about this some, I think, during the podcast. Sometimes people reference Pokemon TCG Online in the past. Some people
Yeah.
say, and I would say, and this is what we're going to kind of talk about, that some people like kind of wish that Pokemon TCG Online was like still around instead of Pokemon TCG Live. For a while, I think Pokemon TCG Online was clearly better than Pokemon TCG Live, despite the
Yeah.
fact that obviously it was older, right? It came before it. So
Yep.
I think that's definitely something that is a lot. I mean, it's certainly, I would not say that Pokemon TCG Live is clearly worse than Pokemon TCG Online was when it ended or like right before it ended. But yeah, do you want to start with the letter or do you want to talk about history stuff first?
All right, I'll give like a few things of a brief timeline points. So just going back, looking at stuff. So it was in August of 2021. That's when Live was first announced. So going back several years, then it wasn't till February of 2022 then that Live the beta launched officially. That was in Canada only, if you were around or remember back to that. So we didn't have access to it then, and their servers weren't prepared. So just partly just going to hit a few difficulties they've had along the ways too. I guess it's good that there was a good demand, but they weren't prepared for it. It took them until November of 2022, so February to November, before the beta became globally available. It kind of was a thing that was pieced out slowly. I'm not going to talk about that period of the beta before it was global, because right now, because I wasn't involved with it, neither was 10 types, but it had a lot of problems. There was a lot of problems, and the user base just kept dropping over that time period. I think partly why they had to keep expanding countries. They wanted just to keep enough users in it to engage it, honestly, because I think people played it and it didn't work. In November it came out, and shortly after it came out, I have something where I had a video that I released December 8th, so like 3 weeks after the global beta, that live breaks. And I believe that was the Elisa Sparkle uh, problem. I could be wrong, but I know that was one of them. If you played Elisa Sparkle, which accelerates your Fusion Strike energy, then the game would freeze up. and the person that that played Elisa Sparkle would get the win, and the other person would just sit there until eventually they had to say concede for the loss. So and that went on. And Mew was a couple things. I think they gave out the deck and the battle pass at one point. It was the best one of the best decks around at the time, and it just became a known glitch. And also, unfortunately, which gets into player base too, a lot of people were just building decks to take advantage of this, and they would just play just to get these cheap wins, which was very unfortunate as well. So that was a negative there. Any comments about this, by the
Yeah,
way?
so I think the first thing, sorry, what was the first thing you mentioned was with Pokemon, TCG Live being announced, right? And that was something that people were
Yes.
legitimately excited about. Pokemon TCG Online
Yep.
was mediocre at best. It wasn't terrible. It was
Hmm.
it was like it had some issues. In terms of,
Yeah.
we'll kind of talk about, I don't know if we'll talk about this too much, but Pokemon TCG Live doesn't run super well in terms of it can like run hot. I will say I've been playing some Magic the Gathering Arena that runs even hotter than Live. But Live's improved some, and Magic also has
Yeah.
more stuff going on. But Pokemon TCG Online would run pretty rough. We're not going to
Yeah.
talk. We'll talk some about the trading system in Pokemon TCG Online, maybe. That ran horribly. Most of Pokemon TCG Online ran better than Pokemon TCG Live, but not the trading was um very slow, right?
It was an awkward system. We'll talk economy some. Yeah, it might have had some pluses, but yeah, it also if you remember the trading thing, like loading up the trays in the
Yeah,
server, it was kind of painful, especially at times when it was busy because it would take like 5 minutes or so, maybe more, to load up all the trades.
I think it
You
was
clicked on
more
a
like
trade.
it was way more than that. It was like
It could be
an
like 10,
hour.
okay, for me, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And then if you clicked on a trade and you wanted to do it, it had
Even
already
at
been
that.
executed, it would crash and then you'd have to like restart it all. It was rough.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't an hour. I don't know. Maybe it just felt like that. But yeah, and then also regarding the glitches. Obviously, part of it is the player rate. I think that is bad. Um, and people did this because of the way obviously the people who are using the glitch are gonna have like faster matches, so it seems like
Yeah.
slightly a worse problem than it is, but it's disappointing when people are um, just abusing a glitch. And, I think there are some glitches like that are more like if ultimately it's a game. If you want to have fun, you should like it's a game, right? And it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do things that actively make your opponent have less fun. But if there's things that make you have more fun that make your opponent have less fun, you can think it like certain decks that people don't like playing against, and everyone has different opinions. It's part of the game. And again,
Yeah.
it was part of the game, but like you don't do anything, right? Like, um, and later on there was a glitch where literally you just start the game and then your opponent couldn't do anything and then you'd win. And you don't like really get anything. Your rating points kind of go up. Um, but or like your the
Yeah. Your
competitive
elo,
the rank ladder,
whatever.
yeah. Which I
Yeah.
that's something I'm not a huge fan of. I've kind of complained about, but most people like it. I'm in the very small minority there of like disliking it. But it is something that also Pokemon hasn't like done anything about. Other games you kind of enforce and in some sense like cheat. I do hear some people talk about like cheating. I think they're wrong. Right? I imagine you've seen forum posts about it, like from time to time.
I I do, and I'm not, I don't really think it's much of a thing. I think
Yeah,
people are suspecting it when it's not there most of the time anyway.
yeah. But yeah, Pokemon. I've like literally. Yeah, I'm sure someone's cheated at some point. In live. In addition to like abusing bugs to a level that is, I'd say, there's some arguable amount, but I think that's it's far
Yeah.
beyond that. Um, And so, but Pokemon, doesn't really do anything about it. Sometimes they, I mean, we're taking a look at a letter today from Pokemon. Sometimes for a while,
Yeah.
the letters were like, "Oh, this is not going well," right? But now their letters are more just, announcements and stuff, which is fine and cool.
Yeah.
But Pokemon hasn't really done more than that. They haven't like, I don't think they've given out like sometimes you can see a company like give out something because they make a mistake or apologize or whatever. Pokemon hasn't really done that. If anything, they've given out stuff, except for the time they gave out the Palafin. But that's
Oh.
yeah. With that by the way, that crashed the game. You'd play. They gave it a free deck that crashed the game. So
Yeah.
Yeah, there are issues. I'd say recently though, like I haven't had major issues much. Actually, I hadn't had major issues for a while. And then I like play, and then we were like, oh, let's do this podcast because it was gonna be like, yeah, live is like working perfectly. And then I played Noivern and it like didn't work, which is also in the build and battle kit. Um, and also, I don't know. I think this is still an issue that's like regular with the like essentially the matching hand size stuff.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah, and you love that hand size kind of stuff. So yeah, the fact that it doesn't work and it's a big it's yeah.
And it hasn't
People
worked
that so
since like the cards come out, like years ago or whatever, or a year ago.
yeah, I mean their addressing of glitches isn't good. Too many glitches, errors, not fixing it. Even I forgot to mention when the global beta came out, that that day was at the maintenance day, and so the servers were down for maintenance. It said, "Here's global beta. It's going to launch at whatever time on this day. And that time hits. I installed it, and then it got servers down for maintenance. You got to wait 6 hours. So there's a lack of coordination, very apparent there. They also had just quickly during this is before before the official launch of live during the beta period. A rotation came like a day early, and if you remember
Oh yes.
back, that was you had a period of like 16 hours where you couldn't search for basic Pokemon essentially because Quickball had
Right.
rotated. But the new cards weren't released yet, so no Quick Ball and Nest Ball wasn't out yet either. So some awkwardness there. And like you said, there's the Palafin EX. We'll probably talk some more. There's the card selection glitch that's improved, but it's still not gone because I've had that recently. Every week I probably have it like once a game a week or so. It's very unfortunate there. It was in June of 2023, by the way, that Pokemon TCGO finally ended. And I guess that's the point at which Live went out of beta. They never really made a big deal of. I think there's something like Live went out of beta at some date, but there wasn't even an update with it, so it was a very odd thing. So somewhere, 2023, so 3+ years ago, is when we've had is Live. So that's been the world we've lived in, which has been a rocky road, but it has its pluses too, and we'll kind of talk about some of the pluses and minuses more as we go on.
Yeah. It's definitely, I mean, it's something, if you haven't played live, you don't know anything about live, play it. Like, it's something, good. I know new players who've gotten to live who play it. And it definitely does some stuff well, which we will talk about. But then also, oh, there was some point I was going to make, and I've forgotten the point. But it's like the development cycle is definitely kind of weird, and a bit all over the place. But there's some
Yeah.
good stuff about live. But anyways,
Yes.
you want to hop into the letter now?
Yeah. So, is there anything in the patch notes, or we just want to talk about the letter? By the
I
way.
don't remember what's in the patch notes. I mean, there's some stuff in the patch notes is also in the letter. I think the important
Yeah.
stuff is. Oh, I guess with patch notes actually on that topic, there's a lot of maintenance in live. Or there was.
Yes.
Now there's not as much. Um, but there's more than I think is good for the game, right? I think it's fair to. Well, okay, well the game needs
Yeah.
it, but like it's a long time.
Yeah. I mean, a couple things. First off, every time there's an update like this, it's down for 8 hours. And back with PTCGO, as you said, PTCGO needed to be replaced. It was showing its age, and people were excited about Live. It just unfortunately Live's been a disappointment. But when the new sets came out, Live PTCGO was down for 3 hours. I'm pretty sure Live is down at least 8 hours for 8 hours every time a new set's out, and every time they do an update, which there's more updates than you know at least once a month. There's probably an update. I would say it's down for 8 hours. There's a new update. They're also they say they're down, which is on Tuesdays typically. It's also gonna be down on Wednesday this following week as well for some server maintenance. So they seem to take everything they do just seems to take longer, be less efficient than pretty much everything else in this world we live in today, unfortunately.
Yeah, it definitely feels behind on thing. I mean, ultimately, I think it comes down to the development team is too small.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I will mention that thing that's a big difference between, or theoretically a big difference between Pokemon TCG Online and Pokemon TCG Live is Pokemon TCG
Hmm.
Online was developed by another company, and
Yes.
Pokemon TCG Live is developed by Pokemon themselves. So that is worth mentioning. I think the main thing is it allows Pokemon to develop it cheaper, which is
Hmm.
theoretically, good for them. I mean, they can spend more money on other things. I think it's mostly just saving them money, though. far as am I aware. I don't know anything really about that, but that's my guess.
Yeah, and we'll talk about monetization in the in-game economy at some point. I won't touch on that now, but yeah, this I think was a money-saving thing, and just because it was a new team, it seemed like they when they started off, they just weren't ready to
Yeah.
go, so they didn't hire. This was coming out of right the post 2020 world when like there were a bunch of businesses that were like hiring every like tech worker and coder like in the world, even if they didn't have work for them. So it probably was harder to get people, but they didn't seem to have a big enough team nor an experienced enough team, and they really kind of floundered for that. And it took, it probably a year or 2 years to kind of just get to the starting point that they probably should have been with their staffing, I would guess.
Yeah, and that's ultimately, I think, the biggest disappointing thing. But again, there are some cool things. But anyways, let's talk about this letter here, I suppose.
Yes.
So I'm not gonna just like read the whole thing. But there is some stuff. Again, there's maintenance, which you mentioned. Um, there's a code card redemption website.
I think you can do it on. I do it in live, right?
Yeah, I
That's
was
the
gonna say.
simplest way, but I think you can also do it on the Play Pokemon website or something as well. I've never tried to do it. By the way, this is the letter to the community dated August 14, 2026.
Yeah, so we're reading it a bit. What day is it? It's um
Today's this We're recording 2 days later.
okay, okay, and then we were posting it the day after.
Yep.
Um, presumably. So yeah, it's going. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. So there's some downtime and stuff, and then these are the changes. So these are not the patch notes, but this stuff is, I believe, also in the patch notes. So there's new Learning Lab
Mhm.
special session on special conditions. Did you say this isn't new?
It's not new. It's been around. It's been out and they've announced it, and I've gone through it, and it's okay. It's not the learning labs. By the way, I'm glad they have it. They're not. They kind of encourage you to play some. They teach you one thing, but they have you do suboptimal strategies in other ways, which I don't love. But yes, it's been here for several months. I think I don't remember when, but yes, it's not new. But they're saying it's new here.
Okay, I will say with the Learning Lab as well. I think it is useful for a new player if you're someone
Hmm.
who like doesn't know anything about like how to play the game or anything or like what the
Yep.
cards are. Um, then the Learning Lab is useful for you. That being said, it's a little hard to find for new players or anyone. It's not
Yes.
like horribly hard to find, but it's easier to find in regular games than it
Hmm.
is to find the Learning Lab, which is I don't know. I don't know exactly how it directs you at the beginning when you start a new account, but yeah. And then a new
Right.
study season uh, regionals in-game campaign starting the 3rd of September, which is just some theming stuff, right? Like some probably sleeves and stuff.
Yeah, the battle board, right? They call it the study season battle board. So they're always changing the background of what you're on, which is nice. I wish we probably could have some control over it. The current board, I think, is a little it's harsh visually, I think. I will say to my eye, but it's good that they change it, but a little more control would be nice. But I think that's the big thing. They're going to change the board differently.
Yeah, that's had issues itself as well at times. Um,
Yes.
when I say issues, I mean like not just it doesn't look good, but like it had lag issues as well, which is like not so good. But that being said, I don't mind the current one too much. But my background on my computer is like bright yellow, so um,
Yeah.
and you don't like that. But anyways,
No.
or it's moderately bright yellow. I might make it brighter at some point. But anyways, then there are some new trainer trial challenges. This
Yeah.
is interesting as well as new build and battle events. I think the trainer trial stuff is interesting. Um, you thought it was really interesting. I think it's also pretty interesting. And then
Yeah.
we'll obviously get to that though. Then there are some fixes. Some of these seem super interesting. One that I have noticed is the lighting issue on avatars. That one was a more recent glitch, and I have seen that one. Have you noticed that one?
Um, no, I didn't notice that one, I gotta say.
Okay, they might have fixed it already. Honestly, I don't know. I noticed it for a little while, and I kind of stopped noticing it. But anyway, so there's that. There's some card issues. I don't know um any of these. I mean, like I know the cards. Some of these cards are good, and could imagine them um happening, but I mean, some of these cards like aren't good. They're I guess all standard, I think. But I don't know. You don't. Nothing stands out to you here, right?
No, no. You're talking about the patch notes, right? With the bug
Oh
fixes
yes.
here.
Oh, I'm in the patch
No,
notes. I'm not supposed to be in the
yes.
patch notes. Yes.
Y-
Okay.
Yeah, you
So
said you're going to talk about the letter, but you switched. You're talking patch notes, but
yes.
just
I,
yeah.
I
Go
went
ahead.
to I okay. So back to school stuff. Thank you for pointing that out. I don't know. I went to the wrong tab. Yes, just the board and the it says the store has metagame stuff or something. I don't really go into the store, but that's cool, I
Mhm.
guess. And then the special condition stuff, the build battle stuff, which is Twilight Masquerade. This is the September 3rd to September 17th. Currently, it's Journey
Yeah.
Together. Um, as of recording this, but then it will be Twilight Masquerade. We have had Twilight Masquerade in the past for 2 days. I will say Twilight Masquerade is probably of all the build and battle formats I played, my favorite so far in live. So I'm very excited for that. I think it's pretty fun. But then aside from that, it's interesting to see that they're redoing it. So why do you think they're redoing it?
Well, I think have they done everything? So they've done the Mega Evolution for they did those
Yeah.
for, and then they've done all. Have they done all the Scarlet and Violet now, or
They
not?
have
That's
not
what I'm
done
not.
all the Scarlet and Violet. They might have done all the Scarlet and Violet in standard. Let's see. They did Dust and Rivals. They're obviously doing Journey Together. Did they do Surging Sparks? What even were the promos for Surging Sparks? I think they did. Um, I'm pretty sure,
Okay.
maybe. And then Stellar Crown. They do Stellar Crown? I don't think they
Uh,
did. So I don't think they've done all of
maybe.
them. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Tell us in the comments, but I don't think they have. Obviously, they will run out at some point, though.
Yeah. I mean, if they've done all the, I don't know how far back they're going to go for these build a battle kits. Obviously, the farther they go back, the better, as far as I'm concerned. But at some point, they'll probably at least take a break, I would assume, and
Yeah.
do it. And maybe at this point, because they're working on other stuff, they didn't want to have to work on and implement this other build and battle kit, right? That could be what it is there. Do you? I mean, I do we want to talk about the build and battle format at all, or we want to talk about formats later on? By the way.
Let's talk. I guess let's talk now. Let's wait a little.
Okay.
Because yeah, you had some stuff to say about that. Related. Which I guess. I mean, let's talk about. Let's introduce the next format, which is the biddy. So it says best your buddies in the biddy basic brawl trainer trial. Um,
Yeah.
which says it's from September 3rd to the 15th, and you enjoy this pretty basic brawl train trial. And decks are cut down to 30 cards with 3 prize cards, and you must contain only basic Pokemon. It can be multi-prize Pokemon, so presumably it'll just be
Right.
like basic box. Um, that's my guess, and I think it's still 4 copies of a card, right?
I think yes, although it's a 30 card deck, so like you can't have. I mean, I would think it's more of like I would think I'd want to probably lean into a basic box with like one or two copies, right?
Yeah, but like you can have 4 copies of like Pokemon Search, for example.
Oh yes, yes, you can. You
Um,
can.
which is
Uh,
kind of interesting. It kind of reminds me of Pocket now that I think about it, with like the 3 prize or 3 point game or whatever, and the essentially
mhm.
half size decks.
Yeah, so I mean I think it's nice. I'm looking forward to it. You were a little skeptical about how good the format will be because when they call it Biddy Basic Brawl, then I think of like a single prize basic deck. But you're going to be playing probably EX basics and even Mega EX basics, I would think. So that makes it a little less interesting. But yeah, I'm looking. This is very different. So that's the nice thing about it there. They did. I think why they can do this is they introduced the build and battle into the game not that long ago, but that forced them to then have 40 card decks with 4 prizes. So the first time not having 60 card decks and 6 prizes, and that they got that to work. So therefore now they can do a 30 card deck with 3 prizes. So I think the build and battle being successful allowed them to do this, and I think it's a nice change within in the game to have this alternative.
Yeah, and I think it will be fun. Or I don't know. I think like conceptually it's fun. I don't know if in practice it'll actually be super fun. Obviously, as you said, I'm a little skeptical
Yeah.
of the format. But yeah, I think it could be cool. And I think the smaller decks as well are kind of interesting, and this goes back to the build and battle, and the formats as a whole, right? I think that the what is it, the format of like the trainer trials, I really, or sorry, the build and
Hmm.
battle with the 40 card decks, and
Yeah.
choosing, like, creating your deck, I think is interesting. Obviously most of the, or I guess all of the other trainer trials have been limits on deck construction,
Yeah.
and that's interesting, having to do different things in deck construction. And I think the idea of having a more limited environment where you can only build from a very specific selection of cards that changes, that that being the what is it? The cards that are
Card pool.
yeah, or
I'm not sure.
sorry, the card pool, but then like cards that you open up. Um, it's interesting. I
Oh.
recently made a video on draft, which is a pretty
Hmm.
interesting format, and cube draft, and I think something like that would be super sick. I don't expect that, but I really do like the more the limited format, or the pre-constructed decks or whatever.
Yeah.
We had
Hmm.
theme in Pokemon TCG Online. I think Build and Battle replaces that pretty well. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but I'm liking it. I do like the Scarlet and Violet era ones encourage more deck building versus the
Yep.
Mega era ones are stronger decks and more consistent decks.
Yeah. No. No. I would agree. Um. ta- let's talk about the two formats for a minute since you brought it up. Is that okay?
Yeah,
So I was really excited. Trader Trials came out first. I was very excited about it. I think you were too, and a lot of people were. And there was a decent amount of play. What's unfortunately happened, I think, with that is a lot of the Trainer Trials. It seemed like they were changing them up, and it seemed like they would keep the ones that were less interesting, and get rid of the more interesting ones. Honestly, that was kind
yeah,
of my sense. I'm not. I'll give the exception of GLC because I think GLC is good, and they kept that around a fair amount too. So, but of the non GLC formats, they kind of kept like the more boring ones, which was unfortunate. And then I also think the user base in the trainer trials just really fell off over time, to a lot. That's kind of my sense. I know I kind of stopped being interested in it as well, but I think the just the general user base of the trainer trials fell off pretty hard. Is that kind of your sense too?
yeah. That's what like what I've kind of seen. Um, it's sometimes hard to find matches. I'd say it's not
Hmm.
been hard to find matches at all in the build and battle format. And
Yeah.
you found that true, right?
Yeah, and I'm really excited. I like that, and I am finding the build and battle to be really fun. I like, you spend a little bit of time putting together the deck, and you are finding users. I hope it continues to have a good user base. I do have some level of concern that over time people are going to fall away from that as well, right? Are they people just going to migrate to standard over time? Maybe, don't know. But in terms of the formats, like you mentioned, the megas build the battle decks. If you haven't done it, you should definitely give it a try. Both whether it's for the Megas Evolution and the older Scarlet and Violet ones. The Mega Evolution is a 40 card pre-constructed deck. You get one of four decks, and they're designed better than the earlier ones. They function better. But the earlier ones you kind of get, there's four rather than four 40 card decks, you get one of there's four 20 card half decks. It's not exactly 20 cards, and they kind of fill it in with certain other things ones, but essentially it's two you get two 20 card half decks, put them together, which is more interesting because now you often get two different types of energies, two types of two types in it, and so it makes you can build it better with the other cards from the packs you pull. I find you have more creativity for deck building. The current one is it the current one which has the trainers Pokemon? That one I got to say I don't like so much because you have two 20 card trainer Pokemon decks. They that doesn't synergize very well, but in general, I do like the two half decks better.
Yeah. On a counterpoint to that, the current one with the trans Pokemon, they don't really synergize anyways. So like they're not super synergy heavy.
Yeah.
There's some synergies there, but like Enstomantian doesn't really have, I mean, there's what, like NSPP up, Lily's Pearl, Hops, Snorlax, I think is actually one of the promos, and you do have synergies there,
Hmm.
or that you'd like to use that you probably don't end up using, but overall I still think they're they're fine within mixing the two together.
Yeah.
The Liz one in particular, I think, is really like it's just not good. It doesn't make that much sense to me either, but it is still a pretty cool format, and I like the deck building. I will say also this kind of highlights the aspect of well, there's a few things, but pulling evolutions, they're often pretty hard to use.
Hmm.
Pulling basics are a lot easier to slot into your decks. And the
Yeah.
Twilight Masquerade one I actually really like. It has the Loyal Three, the Monkey Dory, the Okidogi, and Pheasantipity. I think Pheasantipity, or sorry, not Pheasantipity. I think Monkey Dory is showcased perfectly within this. I think, obviously Monkey Dory is fared very highly. I feel like this is like shows exactly how good Monkey Dory is as a card. It's nice, it's good, but it's not like broken. Um, it can't be your full build around, but it can be very good at times as well. Obviously, it's going to be
Hmm.
probably more focused on its attack than it would be in standard play, but it is still. I think it's really interesting there. With the newer sets, the new Mega Era sets, essentially all but the Mega Evolution expansion itself,
Hmm.
these sets are going to have they're smaller sets, right? So they allow you to play more
Yep.
evolution lines, which is kind of interesting. Traditionally, a pack draft from sets, if you're not familiar with it, don't worry about it too much. But traditionally, that was something that you couldn't um, really do, but I'm wondering if that is more viable with the smaller sets. I think that's, in my opinion, the really only main advantage to smaller sets. Theoretically,
Hmm.
accessibility of cards is increased with the smaller sets, but I think, or theoretically, there could be other things as well if the sets were better, but the sets are not stronger, or they're not more concentrated with good stuff. They're probably more concentrated
Yeah.
with bad stuff. So, but I think you are able to play evolution lines more so in the newer or evolution lines you pull in the newer packs.
Yeah, although with the Mega Evolutions, because you have a 40 card deck that's pretty functional, you need more upside from the cards, like to add them, right? I find I'm more picky about what cards I'll add because the deck functions better, right? Some of the older style build and battle kits from the two halves, sometimes you have some cards that you look at your 40 card deck and you're like, I don't want this card, and I don't want this card in the deck anyway because I'm not getting much value. So you'll replace it with something of not a lot of value. So that changes. So the new games, the decks are more consistent with the newer decks. The Scarlet and Violet, they're less consistent, but I think it's a little more fun just in terms of the deck building and also what you see in your opponents too, right? Because with the Mega Evolutions, you're seeing one of four decks every time to play against. You have a number of different possible configurations with the older ones, so that makes it more fun too, seeing more variety of your opponent's decks as well.
Yeah, and regarding both those things, the consistency in what you're playing, especially what your opponents are
Hmm.
playing, the Mega Era feels more like standard, which can be good to get people into the game and things like that. I think it actually works better for pre-release, like the actual pre-release events, but worse for live format where people are taking it but like much faster. If you don't set up, you just move along to the next game. It's not a huge deal. If you go to a pre-release
Hmm.
event and you don't set up, that really sucks. It feels pretty bad. That's a bunch of your day. It's some actual money you're kind of almost wasting in that sense. So,
Hmm.
um, I see reasons for both there. But then I will, I guess, are you ready to talk about train trials a little more now? Your
Yeah,
point.
a couple. Let me just say on the build and battle. One, I forgot the first thing, but anyway, I they have the token system now for build and battle, right? You get
Oh
one
yes.
token with every new set, and if a set's around for multiple weeks, you get one token a week, and then if you get 3 wins out of the 5 games, you get another token, and you can buy tokens in the store. Oh, by the way, it you can buy it gives you a cap of 99 tokens if you looked at it in the in-game store, but if you buy it every so often and then it counts down, and I guess if you got to 0 you couldn't buy more, but that it does refresh to 99 again. It resets periodically, I've noticed. So I don't know if that's always going to happen, but anyway, getting tokens isn't that bad. Getting to 3 wins, I can get it pretty most of the time, and you get some free tokens. So my token collection is slowly growing. But do you like having this other currency of tokens for the build and battle?
I'll say no. I don't think it's this is something that Pocket has. Pocket has too many currencies. It's manageable,
Hmm.
but it has too many currencies. I would definitely say it almost feels like a kind of mobile game thing that almost feels kind of cheap. In some
Hmm.
ways, and I think you might mention this, it kind of points to potential monetization. You alluded to this earlier, but
Hmm.
Live doesn't have monetization.
Yeah.
And so that is, I think that's something that some ways happy about. But ultimately, with the currencies, there's two other currencies, but
Yeah.
I don't think you need the two other currencies. I think the game could just have one currency, um, and it would be fine enough. It's relatively easy to access stuff, so the currencies don't matter too
Hmm.
much outside of for newer players. And so I think you just want to help new players, right? That's just a good thing to do. And then other than that, the currencies don't matter too much. So I would say less currencies is a little simpler. Less stuff for the live team to worry about as well could be good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's not really. I don't think it's actively particularly bad, but it's not actually particularly good either.
Yeah, look, first, I think the two main currents, I think it's fine. The ones to buy things in the store, the ones to craft cards. I think it makes sense. They're being different. An older currency from like a year or so ago in live that they got rid of to buy cosmetics only. They ditched that currency, so I think that was a good move there. But then they did add this third currency for build and battle. Do they need it? I Yeah, the answer probably is no. I would agree. Um, I guess the only place like and again, I think I'm finding getting my 3 wins pretty consistent. I think you're getting your 3 wins pretty consistent. The people that it would hurt, obviously not everyone's getting 3 wins all the time. So there's newer and less experienced players that are going in that are probably struggling to get like one or two, 0, 1, 2 wins a time. So they're the ones that it's the weaker players that are the ones that aren't going to be able to get more tokens. They're not going to be able to play the build and battle format as much. So, I don't think you want to punish people that aren't as good, but not letting them play the game, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, and especially when this format theoretically is aimed more at newer players as well. Obviously, I have
Yeah.
casual standard. I think is
Hmm.
aimed at newer players, but like, yeah, this definitely feels a little weird. I don't know if weird, like, but it feels when you think about it more, it feels a little, backwards in that kind of way.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't think it like hurts the game too much actually in practice. Um, but also it's a little weird. It's only used for the build and battle. Like it's not used for trainer trials. Trainer
Yeah.
trials you could just do whatever, which I think is like good. I mean, every other form you can just do whatever. So, oh, I guess this is like
Oh,
Pokemon TCG, huh?
well, the reason for it is because you do
Oh,
get
yes.
cards from playing this, right? So that's the reason they want a currency for it, which I guess makes sense.
That's true. That's fair, I suppose. I kind of forget about that because you can access the cards pretty easily. You can also craft the pre-release promos. It's not like the only way to get them is
Yeah.
by playing this. So, yeah, it is definitely that makes sense there. I will say it kind of reminds me of the events in Pokemon
Hmm.
TCG Online, which I will say I definitely do not miss. They had some problems, and the problems weren't like I wouldn't say huge problems, but in practice they weren't that fun. Um, really, they were yeah they were kind of nothing. I kind of say
Well,
I don't know. I mean, they're okay, so they're important to the economy, but other than
right.
that, they playing them wasn't like super interesting.
What first if you didn't play PTCGO, what they were is they used tickets, I think was the name of the currency to enter the event, and you then played. It was 8 players within a bracket system, right? Within it. So and then depending on how you placed in that, depending on the rewards you got, and it was a big part because not going to get into details, but it was a trading system there is what it was, and this was a way to get tradable packs. The only way as a budget player to get tradable cards. So it was a huge part if you didn't want to spend actual money within the in-game economy. So yeah, it was different. It was I kind of liked it, but it was very different and very weird too. So
Yeah, yeah. Like there are things I kind of liked about it, I guess, but also regarding the trading thing, um,
yeah.
the trading is something that people complained about early on that it wasn't in. I mean, it's Pokemon the trading card game. That's something people said a lot.
Right.
That being said, I think it's pretty clear to me at this point that it doesn't really work, right? Like trading didn't work on Pokemon TCG Online. It was
Yeah.
abused some, and it was um, also it was complicated. It
Hmm.
didn't work very well as we said earlier, and then we also saw trading in Pokemon TCG Pocket that also, at least early on, I don't play Pocket, but it was rough. I think it's still complicated. As far as I'm aware, I think it's done better in Pocket than it was in Pokemon TCG Online, but it was done pretty terribly in Pokemon TCG Online, and the economy is better in Live. Should we talk about the economy now, or do you want to talk about other stuff?
Well, one other thing in terms of with the build and battle and the trainer trials, you can't invite friends. You can't do what's the other thing? It's not ranked, which I think is correct. I think ranked would be really weird and kind of broken there. But you can't invite friends, which I will say I wish you could. It'd be nice to be able to sit down and do a build and battle with a friend, right? Or a trainer trial.
Yeah, okay. So a few things to say about that. One is yeah, you can't do the franchise with friends. Build and battle, or sorry, you can't do build and battle with friends. Well, you could do like in
Yeah,
person, but
right.
obviously that's not what we're talking about. With trainer trials, most of them are within standards, so you can actually do most of them.
That's
Um,
true. Yes,
yeah, but obviously it's not as special or whatever.
right.
Then two is there's expanded, right? That's like the thing.
Yeah,
One of the bigger talking points we might talk about at the end as well. Some, but expanded is live has it's limited expanded. It's a beta. It
yeah,
says it's in beta. And that is definitely I don't know. It's just weird. It's obviously expanded in live isn't all the stuff. But
right.
playing it is okay. People don't really take it seriously at all. Occasionally, you'll see some like interesting decks. You might see some videos on some interesting decks from time to time. But when playing it, certainly I don't see what I described expanded decks. I'd see maybe old standard decks or current standard decks, maybe with a few
Yeah.
changes. But and you get you can build legitimately good and interesting decks in the format. Most of the time I just don't see that, or sometimes you see like legitimately terrible, horrendous decks as well, right? That you've probably seen some of those.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird thing with the truncated expanded. I know it is a common complaint. To me, the format's not bad. The problem is the reason it's truncated is I think their lack of competence. That's the big negative, right? It's not like they made an intentional decision to do this format. This is just as many cards as they could implement without too many bugs, I would say. So
Yeah,
that part's not good. You can't invite friends. I guess part of why they limit these friends is once they allowed to play with friends, then you will have online tournaments run through Limitless, I would assume, and then people are going to get more upset about the glitches of that things are caused. So that's kind of I think the reasoning, but it's unfortunate. I expanded would get more play. I think if it had a ranked format. I know you kind of don't like that, but I think right now in expanded stuff, you just it's kind of I think you get matched up pretty randomly is what I would say too. So with a ranked format, ideally you would match into people that are more comparable, right? With if somebody wants to play these random decks, they'll be playing other people with random decks, and if you want to have a good expanded deck, you want to play against other good expanded deck players.
yeah. I will say, um, with matchmaking, with the number one reason I heard for
Hmm.
people wanting ranked, um, was that they play against people of a similar skill level, like have
Yeah.
better matches. But you don't need a public ranking, like or a ranked format to do that. You
Right.
should have a hidden matchmaking system. I know Pokemon TCG Online did,
Yeah.
but I don't know if Live does in the formats that aren't ranked. The train trials it doesn't, or sorry, build and battle doesn't matter too much. Train trials it matters a little. In something like expanded or like yeah, like expanded. I mean, this is something we'll talk about, I guess, now. That the
Yeah.
quality of opponents, obviously, you'll see people who are just newer players, which is cool and stuff.
Yeah.
But with some pretty bad decks, like decks that are worse than the free decks you start with. The free decks you start with are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But like draw through supporters, um, is kind of a classic example. So some random EXs, way too many types,
Hmm.
for no reason,
Yeah.
or just like cards that are just I don't know, okay, random cards that don't have any synergy. You can do like weird, wacky rogue decks, and that's cool and stuff. But these aren't that. You'll see decks that are just don't make any sense. And they're not like interesting. They're just not good. Um, it's somewhat subjective, but like you know what I'm talking about. You've probably seen some of them, and then also you do see
Hmm.
newer players. I guess I'll get to this as well. This is something that can be honestly kind of frustrating at times. It can be frustrating because it can be like you're losing. But players who are just making you'll see some worse misplays in live than you will see in person generally. I mean, a misplay
Yeah.
in person that's really bad would be like, um, I don't know, once I like attached a Dreepy to a Dreepy or something like that, which is like not allowed, obviously. That was kind of awkward.
Yeah.
But you'll see like in person, usually you probably won't make too many misplays because the games are longer. Each game matters more. In live, you're able to play lots of games quickly. I have a quick list here. There was someone, Precious trolleyed for they got me out the X. That was presumably not what they meant to do there.
Yep.
They also someone turn one going first attached TM Evolution. That's not good. So by the way, I guess I'll explain why these aren't good. So me out the X, obviously searching for support on play. It's only from your hand, so it doesn't work with Precious Trolley there, and it essentially does nothing. And then turn one going first, Techno Machine Evolution. It's a card that you attach as a tool. It lets you use an attack but it falls off at the end of your turn. So, and then you can't use the attack as you're going first, so it just does nothing. Again, you just kind of waste it.
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, another thing that I also find annoying as I'm kind of complaining here. Normally, I don't like to complain too much, or I don't complain too much. I don't know if I don't like to, or if I just don't do it. But sometimes people like emo spamming can be annoying. It's not a huge issue.
Hmm.
And it can be people as well. I think that is a nice feature. I think the emos are bad. The emos are kind of bizarre and
Yeah.
creepy. You describe them that way, right?
The emote spamming was more of an issue in PTGO, I will say. I
Yeah.
don't run into it very often in live, fortunately.
Yeah. I'd say the emotes in Pokemon TCG Online were potentially more toxic. Um,
Mm.
the emotes in live are just very strange. They're these like emotion things that are like kind of off. And
Yeah.
then also people like playing slowly. Obviously, if you're a newer player, you got to figure things
Yeah.
out. That's all good. It can be annoying, but you do what you do. But then, or sometimes it's just like really complicated. But like very slow. I mean, for example, taking your prize cards, it literally doesn't matter. So that's like one, and then also just timing
Yeah.
out, being so slow you just like time out. Or people just like randomly going AFK halfway through the game. Sometimes, okay, so you ran into people who do it intentionally, it seems like, right?
Yeah, there's just I guess it hasn't happened as much lately, but yeah, a number of games where there's a pace of play going along, then somewhere middle of the game, or say all of a sudden I do something and it becomes my advantage clearly for the game, and then all of a sudden their pace of play, drastically changes where
Yeah,
they're slowing down, delaying as much as possible between every action. So yeah, I run into that unfortunately.
yeah, and you seem to run to it like a bunch. I don't. Um, I run into it's the opposite for me. I'm like losing, and I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna lose this deck. It's like not good, and then they quit, or they don't quit. They AFK, and then I win because they time out or whatever. So that's annoying. And these are things that wouldn't happen in person. There's not too much you can do about it, but this is like annoying. Um, it's something that would be better if it like wasn't in the game. Maybe if I mean, as I said, I've been playing some Magic Arena. Magic Arena's timer is not really any better than Pokemon. Well, it might be a little bit better. If you need to take long turns, but I think they're both fine enough. And you do sometimes see people still play in Arena Magic. Supposedly, I haven't really seen it happen, but it can happen. And yeah, I think it's not it's like super terrible. There have been times when it's been kind of rough though, as you mentioned earlier with like some of the glitch abuse. I don't think it's too many people, but it is some people, and it can be rough at times.
Yeah, I mean, you need to give people enough play the time to make decisions, especially newer players. So now, as a new player, I think if you feel a little rushed as a new player, that's probably appropriate because the timer shouldn't be such that a new player can think everything through fully because that's takes a lot of time, right? If I play a TCG online of any TCG that I haven't played much, I'm going to be rushed on my turns. I would expect, and
Y-
that's kind of normal. But then you adjust to it. So,
Yeah, if you need
but
to like learn
the
all the
time.
cards and stuff.
Yeah, and you just don't know all the situations well. You can't when it's your turn, you can't think through every possibility of line from scratch completely, right? You have a lot of as you play the game, you have a lot of kind of automatic things that are you get built in. So you just build that up over time. I think the timing's okay. Yeah, it's a tough one to police. You touched on it briefly, so I'll say it here. There, unfortunately, one of the big issues with live is the disconnection issue.
Oh yes.
Just it's gotten better, but it's still a thing. And look, I have a good computer. I have good internet service. I have it's hardwired to the Wi-Fi. It's not even wireless, and it still happens occasionally. Not a lot, but it still happens to me. And it shouldn't be an issue. And I don't have the issue with anything else either. Which is a big part too. It happens in live occasionally. It happens everywhere else like never.
Yeah, I've had it occasionally happen with other things. I was playing Magic and there was like I don't know, I think it was a glitch actually,
Hmm.
that kind of caused me to like freeze. I have had disconnection issues with some different things. I was actually playing on chess.com. That is, on my phone,
Hmm.
or chess on the chess app, and it
Hmm.
keeps like disconnecting for like a little bit. It's not a huge deal. I mean, it's not great, but I think it's gotten to a point where it's passable in live, but not good. As far as wait, can you reconnect? You can, right? I think.
I think in theory you can, but I don't know that you do. They in the
Okay.
forum comments they talk about it, but it seems like once you disconnect, that's it. With other games, right? When you disconnect, you can it will reconnect usually and pick up. But live, I know somehow live just seems to struggle with it more than other games. And I think unfortunately that their fundamental decisions with from day one with live probably weren't optimized. Is my sense.
Yeah, also regarding it, you don't know if your opponent disconnects. They could be slow playing,
Right.
or they could be like they could just disconnect, right? And or just playing or whatever. They're like different
Right.
things that could be happening. Or it can be you or it could be them, and you don't really know. And it can get frustrating. It can depend on weird things as well. Like live has had some weird glitches. Oh, this is one thing I meant to say earlier. The worst live glitch is the one that I know Ember Power had, a YouTuber, as well as some other people. It wasn't a
Mhm.
common glitch, but it locked you out of the game like completely.
Yeah.
That's horrendous. Like if you just can't play the game. Um,
Yep.
like, and this was for like was it a year? Something? I don't know. It was a
It
long time.
went on for a long time, yeah. And I know, like, yeah, with Empower, he was trying to talk. He was talking to the support people and just wasn't getting anywhere. And I guess eventually it sorted itself out. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was bad.
Oh,
With that,
yeah.
yeah.
And then
I mean, go ahead.
so I know with the support ticket, like you can, or the support. So there's like the forums, which we're currently on looking
Yeah.
at, and when people report or say something, there's like I think it's an automated like response that's like, oh, you should submit a support ticket. Like will help fix that. And sometimes it's, I mean, this was an issue for a while when live was buggier. People were assuming things that weren't bugs were bugs, just like game interactions.
Yeah.
Um, and like then you get this post like, oh yeah, we'll look into that. Submit a support ticket. It's like no, like you just made a mistake. That mistakes happen. I've made mistakes in videos that I don't realize that people are like, yeah, no, you did that wrong. So those things happen, but then the support tickets like, or then the moderators are like, or the community, the official community people are like, yeah, like submit a support ticket. Like, no, don't submit a support ticket. Just it's fine. You made a mistake. And that's it. So, yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. Then, and the support tickets are like hard to find, and the community's
Yeah.
forums are relatively easily defined. And I guess not. I don't even know their purpose exactly.
Well, right. Because and yeah. Well, anyway, I don't want to go off track too far, but like there is one of the main sections is Pokemon TCG Live bugs and feedback, a section that they set up just for bugs and feedback. Which I guess they kind of look at some, but you're supposed to do a support ticket as well for an issue. So it's like, what's the point of the forums and what value does it make? It seems like it's just a place for us to vent our frustrations to one another as users, but that's not really helpful. So, it is the set structure of the purpose of the forum, especially in terms of bugs, is very unclear, and I don't think Pokemon's ever really clarified that.
Yeah, and that's disappointing. It was especially disappointing, or was disappointing during the beta. During a beta,
Yeah.
a game is not expected to be perfect. It will have bugs, and that's fine. Any game will have bugs. It is what it
Hmm.
is. And sometimes they'll end up with really unfortunate bugs. Life has been worse than maybe it should be at points, but ultimately having a way to submit, like talk about bugs, that's the point of a beta, and be able to report them clearly is important. And that yeah, that's kind of the point of it. And that if you can't do that, then like, what's the point? I mean, it's just a game at that point, which is fine, I guess, but
Yeah.
it's fine for the players, but it's not so fine for the creators of the game.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, it's again, it's just the lack of kind of coordination, communication. It's apparent in things, including the forums as well. Is what I'll say.
Yeah. So, anyways, I guess we can continue in the letter, or do you have something else to say?
Yeah, no, no, go ahead. Sounds
So
good.
they're adding accessibility settings. This is cool. I don't, haven't had any issues with that personally, but obviously, there are people with those.
What
Um, Wait, are
well,
these
what they're doing there is they're letting you turn off effects, I think, is what
okay?
they say, which is good. Which you
Yes.
could do. That's one of those things that you could do in PTCGO that's only taken them 3.5 years to get it into live. So good. So
Yeah. They've had
good. But
some
I'm
effects you can reduce, I think, right? Or am I imagining
They
that?
did. No, yes, they did, but I think they're adding more. And we talked about some of the visual updates. At times, there was at least one or two visual updates that they used to have like a lot of motion, which I'm glad they reduced because they at one time I'm sensitive to motion making me nauseous, and there were times looking live was making me nauseous. I will say because things
Yeah.
are kind of swirling around on screen in the background.
Yeah. I will say sometimes the background can be a little distracting. I'm someone who likes to be able to engage more with something. Like with Magic Arena, you can like click on stuff and
Hmm.
it does stuff, which is kind of funny. But ultimately, yeah, it can be a little. Well, you can do it on live too. You can click on the checkerboard, and that's certainly. I'm sorry to everyone that bothers in my videos. I do click on it a lot, but I said checkerboard, hexagon board or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, it was side note. Obviously, we're getting a little distracted, but it's a podcast. So that's how these things go, or something like that.
Yep.
But yeah, live streaming has been hexagons. I don't know
Yeah.
why. Um, it's because of the bees, which are bugs. Um,
Oh, that's just all right.
yeah,
That's a rough one, but okay.
gotta be.
Little pun
Um,
there. All right.
yeah. Um, Anyway, so yeah, accessibility settings, that's cool. I don't think this is a huge thing, but it could be big for some people.
Yeah.
And then they are doing, it says the 2027 Championship Series is and more are fast approaching. So this is kind of weird because, and this has to do with kind of how the forums are arranged, that they used to have live and in person separate. There was bizarrely a section for it was like bugs and feedback for like in person, which
Hmm.
is like what's an in person bug? Like just like an actual bee, like um.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's kind of so they've like bizarrely kind of grouped these things together. I mean, they are related. They are both TCI, but that's it. Like, are they're both the Pokemon TCG, but like, you don't do live to do actual like um competitive events, right?
Right.
They haven't done anything like that, right? They did it for Pokemon TCG Online a little.
Yeah. Yeah. They did the. Yeah. I forget whatever they're
Yeah,
called.
they
They
did the
haven't done any.
um Players Cup, which was okay, I guess, had some issues, but
Hmm.
it was fine enough. And then the Team Challenge, which was not fine. I did that one, and you did that one, and that was horrendous. But
Yeah.
anyways,
I thought the Player Cup was fun. I will say, I wish they would do something like that in live, where you can do something competitive at a bigger scale. Once or twice a year. I think would be a nice little addition to help promote live. But it also gets down to the whole what's the point of live, which I guess we have to talk about before we're done too.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, obviously, with live, it is a game that is, it's a game, right? It's a game people like. It's a way
Yeah.
to play the Pokemon TCG. If you play in person and you want to play it online, it's a way to do that. You can play games faster. So some people talk about testing. I think that can be useful. I think if you actually want to legitimately
Hmm.
test for a serious competitive event, while you're on a simulator, they allow you to, like, I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of PTG Sim, but they allow you to actually test better. They have a slightly higher barrier to entry in terms of complexity, but that's kind of the point, right? You're trying to do something that you
Hmm.
want to be able to control more things. You can test more things, and yes, being able to play against random people is useful. You can do that, but in terms of actually like testing seriously, use a simulator for that. People sometimes
Hmm.
complain about like glitches, and they complain about glitches, and they say not the reason is that the game isn't working. The issue is that they are um, okay, another complaint. This is gonna be complaining again. But sometimes people say that the reason a glitch is bad is because they're losing the game. I mean, it's frustrating, but like the reason the glitch is bad is because the game's not like working right and it's making it less fun.
Yeah.
Um, if you want, like I've never heard someone I said like I don't know, there was a while where people were like, this is bad, and I lost. Um,
Yeah.
but anyways, that's just me complaining, I suppose. But in terms of actual stuff, um, people have linked live to like in-person competitive stuff in terms of like that's its purpose for um why it exists. And I don't like think that really makes that much sense. I mean, it makes some sense, I guess. It's not like it can't be used for that, but it is a game. It's a game. It's a game that people play.
Hmm.
It's a game that's independent from in-person play to some extent, and that's what it is, I think, right?
Well, let me just say, it got to the question of what's the purpose of live to the Pokemon Company,
Yeah.
or more specifically, the Pokemon Company International, right? Because and we haven't talked about the economy, in-game economy,
Oh
which
yes.
we're getting towards the end, and there's a couple good. I'll say there's two good things about live. I will first one of the bad things we didn't really mention. It's gotten better, but it's that card selection glitch. To me,
Yeah.
I think that's yes. The fact that you can't log in the game, that's the bigger one. But in terms of once you log in, the card selection glitch has been the biggest one.
Yeah, and it's
It's
common,
improved.
relatively common.
Yeah, it's gotten better, but it's still not eliminated. I will say I still have it periodically, in different weird ways. So I'm not sure with that. But the good thing first, the game is visually more modern. I will make fun of it how they do updates too often. I think they do, but compared to PTCGO, it was looking really old. Live looks maybe it's not the nicest looking game around, but it looks pretty good. I think so.
Yeah, way better.
Better anyway, right? You agree about that?
Yeah, I'd say that's kind of interesting. I'd say relative to their time, they're probably equal,
Hmm.
which is fine because live is newer.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah. And then the other thing is the in-game economy, right? First, which gets to the question of what's Pokemon's intention behind live. I guess it's to because at some point they're a business. They do things to make money. So I guess this is just helping promote Pokemon so that more people are doing it. But they're not making lives only cost them money. They don't actually make money from it. So, which is why they want to keep the cost down. But the nice thing is because they're not making money, they don't need to make access to cards difficult, which they don't. They have a very generous in-game economy. At times, I think it might be a little overly generous. I think a little bit of work to get the cards, I think, would be better. Um, it not the main focus is to play the cards, get the cards, play, and build your decks, play what you want. But a little bit of effort to get the cards isn't bad. Getting the rarer cards is a little bit of work, but even that, um, well, they changed it so you can't get the high rarity. You can't craft them right away, but I think that's fine for people. You can let us know if you think that's a problem in the comments there. But the good is you have access to the cards under PTCGO with the trading system. If you it really was tough to get cards. As a budget player, you could maybe out of the top 10 decks after having played for a decent amount of time, I could maybe have two of the top 10 decks at any one time, and I couldn't have the newest decks, within like the first month or so. That was always inaccessible. So it's nice having access to the cards. That is the big plus in live. You can get the cards, you can build whatever deck you want, which is really nice.
yeah. I think that's honestly like with the economy. To me, it's pretty simple. So you can get stuff. There
Hmm.
could be some tweaks and changes they could make to it, um, but I like it. I think the economy in live is really good. Um, yeah, quite simply, that's that to
Yep.
me. And it is
Hmm.
something that gets people into the game. I've seen it get people into the game, or at least help people along that path. People
Yeah.
who, and also I think it bridges the gap between collectors and players to some extent as well, being an easy way, or a relatively easy way to get into the game. I know people who love
Hmm.
opening up Pokemon TCG packs who don't really play the game, who then learn a little about the game, said, "Oh, maybe this is something I want to try. How do I do this?" There's live.
Yep.
Live is solid. Same thing with Pocket. I think Pocket in some ways bridges the gap, but then Live bridges it even further. Live and Pocket. I mean, Pocket is a game with more air in it. I think Pocket's
Hmm.
in a pretty good spot. There was a time which it was in a not like when it first came out and earlier on, it wasn't in a super good spot. A lot of people
Hmm.
stopped playing. I stopped playing. Um, but I think it's improved a lot since then. And
Yeah.
Well Pocket and Live are not by the same like quote company. They are heavily related, and I think it is good. And this like whole, I think the Pokemon TCG is getting a better identity other than just being this big like collector thing. Collecting is obviously a big part of it, but I'm happy with Live, and I think its purpose is fine. I think its purpose is good. I
Mhm.
think Pokemon, what they're able to get out of it is fine there. Was there another big thing we were going to talk about, or is there the stuff to end to kind of wrap it up?
No, I mean, look, I'll just rate quickly the big complaints I see online, and you can comment on or just ignore. One, there's a lot of people complain about randomization, that it's not adequate. I don't really see that as an issue, but anyway, that's
Yeah.
common. The lack of full expanded implementation, people complain about a lot, and then the card selection glitch, right? Those are like three of the big issues that still kind of go on. But again, I don't think they're game breaking things.
Yeah, regarding those things, the card selection, I mean that can be kind of game breaking, right?
Yes, it can.
That
Yeah, you
one
can lose
is,
because of that.
yeah, it can be annoying. It can be rough. But it's not super common, I don't think. But it depends on person. And the glitches seem to kind of depend on person as well, which is very bizarre. And then
Yeah.
also there is the what was it, the other two things you said, the expanded,
The
people
card.
complain about it a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's people something kind of like with the rank ladder, people complained about that not existing in Pokemon TCG Online. It's existed, I've heard literally no praises of it. I've heard some complaints and no praises. So I think it's one of these things that people
Hmm.
just complain because they like to complain. For the most part, I think there are legitimate complaints for it, but I don't really hear those. I mostly hear people just saying like, "Oh, it's not in the game, and that's why it should be in the game." And it's like, that's not really a reason. Expand is interesting. There's stuff to say about it. And there's good, there's bad, there's all sorts of different things. But expanded is, people don't say those things. And then the third one of the randomization is usually, as far as I'm aware, that's like not true at all. Um, and I think it sometimes has to do with people like it's like, oh, I am sometimes it's like, oh, my opponents always get so much better luck than me, and they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I like my opponents are playing like all these supporters and I'm like not. And so like sometimes I think a lot of the times it comes down to deck construction. And it often newer
Yeah.
players as well, right, who just aren't very experienced with
Hmm.
building decks, and then sometimes get like annoyed. So yeah.
Yeah. I think deck construction is an issue, and also our bias of what things what
Yeah.
things we notice, what things we remember, right? That we have our biases on that as well.
Yeah, that's true. But anyways, we have this last thing, which is potentially the biggest thing. Not the so reading the last thing, it's relating to the
Yeah.
in-person play. That's not. I mean, I guess that is big, but that's not a big live thing. But then it
Yeah.
says, in the meantime, before the next season, mark your calendars because on September 15th we launch one of our biggest updates yet. Someone actually left this in the comment section. I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was, but they left it, so thank you. Because I missed this and you missed this, right?
Yes. Yeah. It was just a little thing at the end that talked about IRL play and stuff, and I was done reading. Honestly, just
Yeah.
skipped that sentence.
So yeah, it says we are launching one of our biggest updates yet. So what does this mean? In the past, big updates have been um what, build and battle and train trials.
Right. That they did the game log, right? That was, I would say, a big update because that was the first major new thing.
Theoretically, but in terms of play change, it doesn't like actually really do much.
But they say call it an update though, right? So
Yeah,
that would be a big update. And also they did the deck editor update. I think they would classify that as a big update as well.
yeah.
Pokemon would.
So I think there's only one thing that crosses my mind. I don't necessarily think it's this, but there's one thing that crosses my
Okay.
mind. Is it the same thing that crosses your mind?
Is it expanded? Because they did
Yeah,
say they were going to. Now they said they would start implementing more expanded cards this year, and obviously we're getting to towards the end of the year. So now I don't think they're, unless they're going to surprise and do full expanded. I don't think they will, but I
yeah.
maybe they'll start implementing more sets in expanded.
Yeah, and that would be really big. A side note, because again, you said they're doing it this year. There was, I think it was, maybe it was like 2 years ago that Pokemon was
Hmm.
like, yeah, we're gonna do something by the end of the year. We'll give you an update. And then you and I were preparing for the podcast, and we were like, they
Yeah,
didn't do anything. And then like 2 days before the end of the year, they were like, or something like that. They were like, oops, sorry, here's our thing. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so they do, I guess, hold to their promises, but it could be related to expanded, which would be interesting, worth noting, very meaningful. but also
Right.
I don't know. It could be like anything. It could be like different background art or something.
Right. Now, the thing it's not going to be some new announcement for the TCG as a whole, because remember, this is TCGI,
You see.
not TPC, right? So it's not going to be like the new mechanic that they're introducing next year. That's not it can't be that.
No, I mean it could be like that is like the same time, but it
Yeah.
can't be that they're like that's not what they're announcing.
Yeah. So so looking forward to it. Whatever this is, hopefully it doesn't break the game. A year or two ago, I would have been more afraid than looking forward to it. But I think at this point they started to get things going, so it probably won't cause major trouble. And do let us know in the comments below what you think this big update might be that we're getting in a few weeks.
Yeah, but we hope you all enjoyed the episode today. Check us out on our channels, 10 Types and Uncommon Fossil on YouTube, and you can comment there. If you have any other, um, if you want to listen to us on podcasting platforms, you can do that. But please comment on our YouTube channels. Unfortunately, we can't see the comments on the podcasting platforms because they're weird. But yeah, you can like us there or leave a review or whatever. And then we obviously hope you enjoyed. Make sure you like and subscribe on our channels. And as always, we're excited to see you in the next episode.
Take care.